Hi folks, in this video we're gonna go through component lifecycle for React.js. There are two types, creation and update. Creation is when you render the component for the very first time. Any subsequent render cycle is the update. First of all, the constructor initializes the state. Then in getDerivedState from props, you zinc the state. After zinking the state, you render it. Render is just what it is, you render to the screen. And then you render all the child components. At the very end, you call component.mount. First thing to realize is that you don't do any side effect stuff like fetching data from a server until the very end in the component.mount. Okay? In the update cycle, you don't do the initializing in the constructor anymore, so you skip the constructor, then go to the next step, get derived state from props. You zinc the state. So you zinc the state, and then this is a funny bit. You ask permission for updating. If you return false, then it will stop here. The next steps will not go through if you return false on this stage. If you give permission for updating, then it renders, the child renders. Get snapshot before update means you do any last minute stuff before you finalize. You finalize in the last step, component.update. As with the component.mount, component.update is the end of the update cycle, and you do any side effect stuff also at the end, not before. So you do all the side effect stuff like fetching from server at the very end, either in the first render, component.mount, or any subsequent rendering, component.update. Another thing to realize is when you render the component for the first time, you don't ask for permission. You only ask for permission to update during the update cycle after you zinc the state. If you give permission to update, then you go to the next steps. But if you say no, I'm gonna return false, then the update cycle will stop there, as you will see in the example now. Let's refresh this page. You can see here app.js is the main component or the parent component. It calls the constructor, it zincs the state, renders it, and end the rendering with component.mount. So it's mounted. Other child components are not rendered, but when you toggle persons, then it will be rendered. So it goes up to the app again, it zincs the state. As you can see, it skips the constructor this time. Here it asks for permission now, because this is the second render cycle. So you ask for permission, you give the permission, it renders it. All the child components are rendered, and at the end, app.js ends with component.update. In the very first render cycle, it ended with component.mount. This time, it ended with component.update. I'm gonna trigger the update by changing some values like 1. Now have a look. You go up to the app.js again, it zincs the state, it asks for permission, it renders it, and in the child state, in the child component, it asks for permission this time. Last time it just rendered it without asking for permission. because that was the first time it was rendered, but this time around you're updating it, so it will ask you for permission. Then it renders it and renders the child of the persons, which is the person, 3 times, as you can see, like before. And then it asks it does the last minute stuff, like here, this one, last minute DOM operation, which in this case just returns the message object. And then inside the child of component, it ended its render cycle with component.update, and it goes up to the main component, and the main component ended with component.update. So I hope that's clear. What if I change this again? Same thing happens, right? As you can see, the app.js asks for the permission to update, and the person's component asks for the permission to update. How do you give permission? It's easy. Here in the person's component, this is the should component update. At the end you just return true, so it's given permission this way. Okay, so what if I toggle persons? It removes the persons, okay, from screen. So it syncs in the app.js, it syncs the state, give permission to update, it's given, renders it, render any child component, which is none, and then it ends with component.update. So I guess that's clear. Thank you very much.